Our movie today opens with a moving train where we meet Captain Colter Stevens, an army pilot who wakes up confused about his whereabouts. And sitting in front of him is Christina, who initiates a conversation and refers to him as Sean. And Colter looks around in confusion and he begins to feel really uneasy, and he fails to respond to the conductor's request for his ticket. And Christina attempts to assist him in finding his ticket, but Colter admits that he doesn't know who she is. And feeling lost and disoriented, Colter exits the train and he returns to his seat next to Christina. And as he gazes into the window, he is startled to see a different face reflected in the glass. And feeling very alarmed, he rushes to the bathroom and he looks at himself in the mirror, only to discover that the person staring back at him is a stranger. And in his pockets, he finds a wallet that contains an ID card belonging to the man that he saw in the mirror. And suddenly, the train explodes and Colter wakes up in an unknown location with a female voice requesting acknowledgement for transmission. And feeling really confused at this point, Colter requests a debriefing from the woman who reveals that he is with the beleaguered castle, and she begins to rebuild his memory pattern with a pattern recognition sequence accompanied by visuals on a screen. And Cole tries to stand up, but the woman insists that he stay seated and focus on the exercise. And gradually, he remembers part of the exercise and he repeats them back to the woman, and she asks him for her name. And Colter recalls that it was actually Goodwin. And if you're confused about what I just said, let me explain. Colter is basically inside something called the source code. And the source code is an experimental machine that reconstructs the past using the dead passengers' residual collective memories of 8 minutes before their deaths. And this basically means that the person that he was on that train traveling and stuff is fake. It already happened. He's not that person. And that person is already dead, but here inside the source code, they can reconstruct the memories and they can send him back so that he can actually find out what happened on the train. Yeah, I hope you guys got it. And Dr. Rutledge briefly appears on the monitor, and Colter requests to speak to his father. But Goodwin interrupts him, revealing that the train explosion was caused by a bomb, and she tells him to find the bomb in the bomber, and he will discover more information in the source code once they send him back now. And Colter believes that he's in some kind of simulation, but Goodwin refuses to disclose any kind of information for now, and she just sends him back. And he's instructed to go back in time for 8 minutes, and Colter is determined to uncover the identity of the bomber. And Goodwin advises him that Christina calling him Sean is just incidental and urges him to focus on finding the bomb instead of interacting with some woman. I don't know, if you ask me, if a woman looked like Michelle Monaghan, I'd interact with her all day, every day. And as Colt boards the train once again, Christina shares that she'd been given her notice at work and she's preparing to take the LSAT. And suddenly, a woman spills coffee on his shoe as he hears a soda can opening. And perplexed by all these repeating events, Colt voices his realization that he's experiencing a simulation. And he sets a timer on his watch and he begins searching for the possible bomber. And Colt startles a man and inquires about the delay, and Christina reminds him that the man is a comedian who had legal issues. And as Colt surveys the train, he witnesses a student return a wallet and recalls that the explosion occurred from behind him. And he proceeds to check the bathroom and he discovers a bomb inside the vent. And pretending to be transit security, Colt informs the passengers about the security breach and he demands they stop using their cell phones. And Colt ends up punching a man who disregards his orders, and suddenly the train explodes and Colt wakes up in a different place this time. And Goodwin instructs him to lower his pulse and informs him that he's been working with them for 2 months now. And the bomb was intended to explode when a freight train was passing by, resulting in a bigger destruction for both vehicles. And Colt realizes that the bomber must have known that the freight train was passing by, and Goodwin directs him to focus on the passengers and their assigned tasks. And upon regaining consciousness on the train once again, Colt notices Christina's remarkable compassion for other passengers, and he inquires about their behavior with the conductor. And despite his suspicions, the conductor reports nothing out of the ordinary, leaving Colt puzzled and disheartened. And Colt then plays a game with Christina to identify a suspicious passenger on the train. And Colter manages to single out this Muslim guy that was exiting the bathroom. Anyways, Christina accuses Colter of resorting to racial profiling, explaining that he was the only person seen entering the bathroom, thereby making him a prime suspect, and not because he was dressed like a Muslim. Come on! She doesn't actually say it that way, but that was what I would have said. But Colter, undeterred by Christina's rebuke, decides to confront the Islamic man, hoping to find some evidence that would prove his suspicions were right. And the man pleads with Colter to leave him alone, insisting that he's merely a harmless passenger traveling on the train. And in his zeal to uncover the truth, Colter resorts to physical violence, attacking the man and demanding to see his phone. And in this precise moment that he was forcing to see his phone and stuff, the bomb detonates, sending shockwaves through the train and leaving Colter reeling from the impact. And despite the chaos and confusion, Colter remains convinced that the Islamic man was the mastermind behind the bombing. And he chases the man through the train. However, his pursuit is cut short when he's suddenly pushed onto the train tracks, leaving him at the mercy of an oncoming train, hurling towards him at great speed. And upon awakening, Colt discovers that communications are down and the place is shutting down, leaving him freezing in the cold. And as Dr. Rutledge briefs Goodwin, he informs her that Colt's time in the source code is limited. If he doesn't return soon, he'll die out there. And meanwhile, Colt manages to restart the power in his location, and he starts hearing distorted voices of Dr. Rutledge, and he communicates with him through a pattern sequence that Colt responds to. And the doctor reveals that the source code is not a time travel machine, but more of a time reassignment machine. And Colt can report what he sees in that parallel reality through the eyes of Sean Fentress. But when Colt tells the doctor that he saved a passenger on the train, the doctor informs him that it doesn't actually work that way. And Goodwin returns and continues the conversation, revealing that Christina died that morning on the train and there's nothing Colt can do to save her. And despite his confusion, they send Colt back to prevent another suspected attack in the center of Chicago. And this time, the bombers plan to activate a bomb that could wipe out a significant portion of the population. And Goodwin instructs Colt to retrieve a gun from the train security glove compartment, but he gets caught by the conductors. And knowing that the train will explode soon, Colt starts conversing with Christina and confesses his last wish to apologize to his father. And he also realizes he's slowly falling in love with her. I mean, who wouldn't? Look at that face, come on. And moments later, he wakes up in another place and informs Goodwin that the gun was not the best idea. And he also expresses his desire to speak to his father, but Goodwin just brushes him off. And Goodwin also tells him to check the passenger's things, and she sends him back inside the source code. And in the source code, he becomes suspicious of a man talking on the phone. And Colt searches through his bag and he discovers a bag from the Army Medical Center and letters that spell Nellis Air Force. And here Colt goes through a memory flash of his friend from Afghanistan, and he realizes that he's dead, and then he starts hearing Goodwin's voice again, and she talks him through the mnemonic exercises again. The exercises are basically things he does to remember stuff. And when he wakes up again, Colt immediately asks Goodwin if he's dead. And he found an article online that said that he was dead and that his father received a medal for him. And she tells him that his body is a manifestation and that he needs to focus on the train. And Colt insists on knowing the truth, but she only reveals part of it, saying that part of his brain is still active somehow. And as Colt starts to give up, the doctor manipulates him by playing a record of his father giving an interview after he died. And feeling remorseful for never really understanding each other, Colt asks Rutledge to send him back. And despite his exhaustion, Colt continues to go back into the source code until he can prevent the attack. And Colt returns back to the train, and he heads straight for the gun, and he carefully removes the detonator phone from the bomb. And he dials the only number in the log, initially suspecting the man sitting in the train, but then he realizes that his prime suspect was actually talking to his wife. And Colt then calls the number again, and another number rings outside. And he follows the owner, and he sees him placing his wallet back on the train, revealing his name to be Derek Frost. And just as the doors close, Colt escapes through an emergency exit, and he watches Derek heading towards a white van. With a name like Derek Frost, it's never a good guy. I'd immediately be suspicious. And Colt follows Derek and he confronts him with the phone, and Derek pretends not to recognize it, but ultimately he reveals the truth. That he has another bomb in the van, and Colt inspects the bomb and asks Derek where his next target is, and when Christina appears, Derek shoots them both, and although Colt survives, Derek thinks that Colt is going to die, and he gives him a speech on why he's doing this. Derek apparently believes the world is hell, and it must be destroyed and rebuilt for the next generation. And he leaves them there, and the bomb in the train explodes, and Colt is back into the same cycle again. If you really believe that you want to destroy the world to remake it again, you're gonna need a lot of bombs, bro. Not just a few bombs in Chicago. And Colt tells Goodwin and the doctor about the bomber and the van that he had. and he confirms that the second bomb was actually radioactive, and Rutledge and Goodwin congratulate him and tell him that his mission is finally over. But before they leave, he asks to be sent back to try to save the people before he dies. And meanwhile, the army arrests Derek Frost before he can detonate the second bomb, and Dr. Rutledge receives validation from his superiors about his project. And Goodwin returns to talk to Colt about the possibilities of parallel realities. And she explains that he can't alter the past, but Colt insists that there was a failsafe on the explosive that he didn't see before, and that Goodwin is wrong about altering the past. And he pleads with her to send him back in without approval and then just switch him off. And she eventually agrees, telling him that at the end of his source code, she will terminate his life support. Technically, either way, he is dying, but she's gonna do that for him so that he stays in the source code so that he doesn't return to that weird place. And Colt returns to the train for the last time and he asks Christina out for some coffee, which she gladly accepts, but before that, he sarcastically asks her to give him a few minutes to save the world. And he instantly goes towards the bomb and he removes the first and second deadbolts, and he passes by Derek and he steals the conductor's handcuffs while the source code is still active. And Dr. Rutledge continues receiving good news from his superiors, but Goodwin walks into his office and he tells her to wipe Colt's memory and prepare him for a new source code. And Rutledge has no intention of letting him die, but Goodwin disagrees with his decision, and back on the train, Colt stops Derek from leaving the train and he cuffs him. And he calls the police and tells them everything about Derek and the radioactive bomb in the van, and Colt sends an email to Goodwin from his phone, and he calls his dad to apologize before his death. And meanwhile, Goodwin goes to where they are keeping Colt's body and opens the chamber. And Colt returns to Christina, and the pair share a passionate kiss, believing that they couldn't waste a single moment. And in the parallel universe, the Doctor receives a call that Goodwin is with Colt in his chambers. And Rutledge and his henchmen try to unlock the door and stop Goodwin, but she waits for Colt's 8 minutes to run out, after which she switches off his life support. And the guards rush inside to find Colt's dismembered body, and back on the train, the explosion never happens. And Colt reassures Christina that everything will be okay. And the movie ends with the couple taking a walk to the Chicago Bean, and Colt realizes that the vision he had during the transitions were of that same moment. Basically, he gets to live out his life in that universe, and the source code is real, and he did change what happened for him. So he's actually just living his life. Yeah, and that's basically a happy ending in another universe. I really like happy endings. I really hope you guys enjoyed that recap. I hope you guys leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you guys on my next recap. I love you all very much. Bye.